He thought he could have anything he wanted. Billionaires often do. Sitting in his private VIP lounge, surrounded by the kind of opulence that made normal people's jaws drop, Alexander Drake was the picture of arrogance. He wasn't a man used to being told no. Money, power, and influence, he wielded them like extensions of his own body. And yet, tonight, he wanted a little distraction. Something different. Something that had nothing to do with boardrooms or business deals. She was just a waitress. Not that she knew it yet, because she carried herself with a kind of quiet dignity that made her look out of place among the glittering clientele of the Drake Lounge. Her name was Lily Bennett, and she had learned early that in a world that constantly underestimated her, the only person she could rely on was herself. Lily had dreams. Big ones, but she had bills to pay and a life to sustain, so she worked in a place like this, serving champagne and caviar with a smile that masked her exhaustion. Alexander's eyes locked on her the moment she walked past his table. Something about her confident step, the way she didn't flinch under the gaze of wealthy men, intrigued him. He waved his hand, summoning her over. "You, waitress, come here." Lily approached cautiously. She had learned to read the air in rooms like this. Some customers were harmless. Others, dangerous in ways money couldn't measure. Alexander was staring at her with a peculiar intensity, one that made her stomach tighten. "I'm Alexander Drake," he said, leaning back casually. "I like you." Thank you, sir," Lily replied politely, though she felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Compliments from men like him were rarely innocent. "I have a proposition," he continued, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Dance with me. 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. No strings attached." Lily blinked, caught off guard. She wasn't used to being asked to dance by billionaires, especially ones who seemed to see the world as a playground. "Excuse me, you heard me," he said, leaning forward. 10 minutes. That's all. A dance. I want to see you move. And then, who knows? Maybe we'll talk more, or maybe we won't. It's your choice." She paused, assessing him. He exuded entitlement, the kind that came with billions in the bank and a history of getting whatever he wanted. Her first instinct was to say no, to walk away, and let him stew in his own arrogance. But then she caught the faint flicker of doubt in his eyes, the vulnerability he didn't know he carried. It was there, just beneath the surface. And something inside her, a spark of defiance, ignited. "I don't dance for money," she said quietly, her voice calm but firm. "And I certainly don't dance for people who think they can order me around like I'm their property." Alexander laughed, a deep, amused sound. "Bold. I like that, but you misunderstand me. I'm not asking you to work. I'm asking for a dance. 10 minutes. One song. That's it." Lily's eyes narrowed. "And if I say no?" He shrugged, smiling like a man accustomed to hearing only yes. "Then I'll find someone else." That was it. That was the challenge she needed. Lily took a slow breath and leaned forward. "Then I say yes, but not because you asked me. Because I choose to." The words hit him like a cold splash of reality. He hadn't expected her to turn his proposition into something of her own making. In that moment, she wasn't just a waitress. She was someone who knew her worth, someone who could stand her ground in a world where most people crumbled. The music started, a soft, sensual jazz piece that seemed to fill the entire room. Alexander extended his hand, and Lily hesitated for only a heartbeat before placing hers in his. His hand was warm, firm, and insistent, but Lily didn't let it dictate her movements. For the first few seconds, he tried to guide her, moving her in patterns he thought she should follow. But Lily began to lead. Step by step, twirl by twirl, she controlled the dance with precision, grace, and unexpected flair. Each motion challenged him, surprised him, and revealed a side of him he had buried under layers of wealth and ego. "You're different," he said, breathless. "Most people, they follow. They don't follow." She interrupted gently, spinning away from him with a smile. "Maybe you've never met anyone who dances to their own rhythm." His pride bristled, but instead of anger, it sparked admiration. She wasn't just resisting, she was redefining the rules. And for the first time in a long time, Alexander didn't want to control the outcome. He wanted to see where she would take it. The 10 minutes stretched, though neither of them noticed. Lily's confidence grew with every step, while Alexander's carefully constructed mask of dominance began to crack. She laughed at one of his clumsy turns, not maliciously, but with a warmth that made him ache. And when she corrected his posture with a gentle hand on his shoulder, he felt an unfamiliar vulnerability. By the end of the song, Lily stepped back and curtsied, her eyes gleaming with triumph. 10 minutes. Done. Your turn to reflect. Alexander stood frozen, utterly destroyed, not physically, but emotionally. For someone used to control, someone who had spent his life bending the world to his will, being disarmed by a waitress in 10 minutes was humbling. You're incredible, he stammered. And you're lucky, Lily said, smiling. Most people don't get a dance that they didn't earn. But I gave you one. Out of choice, not obligation. He felt the sting of his arrogance. For the first time, he realized that money, power, and status couldn't command respect or admiration, they could only buy compliance. But respect, that had to be earned. And in that 10-minute dance, Lily had earned it effortlessly. Do you want to maybe have dinner? He asked, trying to regain some semblance of control. She shook her head. I don't need to turn everything into a transaction, Mr. Drake. But I do appreciate the offer. Let's just leave it at the dance, for now. He laughed softly, a sound more self-aware than any he had made before. You've completely destroyed me, you know that. Good, she replied. Consider it a lesson. The room had gone silent. The other patrons had watched the dance in awe, but Alexander barely noticed them. He was too busy processing the revelation that someone like Lily could shake him so profoundly without even trying. Over the next few days, Alexander found himself thinking about that night endlessly. It wasn't just her defiance, her poise, or her beauty, it was her spirit. Every encounter with Lily became a mirror, showing him the cracks in his armor and forcing him to confront the man he had become. He sent flowers. She returned them. He tried to contact her, but she was always polite, always distant. He realized that he couldn't just buy his way into her life, couldn't manipulate circumstances to his favor. She was untouchable in the best way possible. Finally, he decided to meet her on her terms. Not as a billionaire with a sense of entitlement, but as a man who wanted to understand her world. And for the first time, he waited patiently, listened intently, and followed where she led. Lily accepted the meeting. Not because of his wealth or influence, but because she was curious about the man who had been so thoroughly humbled by a dance. She wanted to see if there was substance behind the arrogance, if there was more to Alexander Drake than his billions. Over dinner, conversation flowed naturally. They laughed, debated, shared stories, and discovered common dreams. Alexander realized that true connection couldn't be bought, and Lily discovered that people sometimes did have the capacity for change, if they were willing to confront their flaws honestly. By the end of the evening, Alexander didn't just want to impress her anymore. He wanted to grow because of her. And Lily, seeing the genuine effort in his eyes, felt a cautious optimism. They weren't simply a billionaire and a waitress anymore, they were two people learning to meet in the middle of vastly different worlds. Weeks turned into months, and the story of the dance became a legend among the staff and patrons of Drake Lounge. Everyone who knew the tale spoke of how the unassuming waitress had tamed the untamable billionaire with nothing but grace, wit, and a refusal to be controlled. Alexander often thought back to that night, the 10 minutes that had upended his world. And every time he did, he smiled. Because in that moment, he had learned a lesson that no amount of money could buy. Respect and admiration were given freely, earned through character, courage, and authenticity. And Lily, she continued to live her life on her own terms, proving every day that true power wasn't about wealth or status. It was about owning your choices, commanding your space, and never letting anyone dictate your worth. Alexander Drake had walked into that dance thinking he could control it. He left having been destroyed, but in the most beautiful way possible. And for both of them, that destruction became the foundation for something unexpected, profound, and real.